Have you ever felt like your life should be full by now, but every time you look inside, all you can hear is silence? Like everyone else was handed something, you are still standing at the door waiting to receive. Not the cup you asked for, not the portion you pictured, not the delivery you keep listening for. Something quieter than all of that, and already here. As I speak, I am turning your face toward the jar in your hands, the one you keep lifting to the light to see whether anything has finally been placed inside. Come and sit with me a while over this vessel you have been carrying half ashamed, certain it is emptier than everyone else's. You do not have to fill it before you come. You do not have to explain to me why it feels so light in your grip. I am not asking you to arrive full. I am asking you to hold it open. Let me show you what has been resting inside the clay the whole long time you spent waiting for a shipment from somewhere else. There is a scene playing in you. I have watched it more times than you would guess. You lift the jar of your life up to the window. You tilt it. You listen for the sound of something moving around inside. Nothing rattles. So you set it back down on the shelf and decide you are still empty, still waiting, still behind everyone who seems to have received already. A mother counts what is left on the table after the bills are covered, and here's only the shortfall in it. A man works a second shift. He drives home in the dark, still sure he is not enough for the people sleeping in that house. Someone lifts their eyes to another person's life the way you stare through a lit window from a cold street, convinced that every other vessel came filled, and yours alone came cracked. None of that watching is hidden from me. I have been beside the shelf where you keep the jar, not off on some far hill deciding whether you have earned a filling. I have been close to the tired hands that keep checking, close to the small daily arithmetic you do when no one else is awake to see it. And the ache underneath all your counting is not the ache of a person who has nothing. It is the ache of a person who has been told to keep waiting for the very thing already sealed inside them. Notice, too, how the asking has shrunk in you over the long wait. It used to be a full request, spoken with the confidence that the jar would be answered. Now, on the thinnest nights, it is barely a sentence. Half a breath pushed toward the ceiling that you are not even sure counts as prayer. It counts. Not one of them has slipped past me. The whispered half-question you assume is too faint to land anywhere is the very one I bend down to catch. And I have seen the quieter accounting too. The kind no one else is in the room for. The same page of numbers opened on your phone and closed again. The message to someone who owes you an answer, started and moved back to your drafts. The plan you keep pricing out in the dark, setting it down, because the jar looks too empty to even begin. None of that is a verdict. It only shows me where you have been hunting for fullness in the one place it was never kept. Some of you learned this counting early. In the house you grew up in, there was never quite enough. And you learned to watch the level in every jar, to measure love by what was left over, to brace for the bottom of things before you had even reached the middle. You were handed a scarcity you did not choose, and you have carried it into rooms that are not that house and years that are not those years, still checking, still rationing, still sure the supply could run dry at any moment. I saw the child who learned to expect too little. I have never once measured you, not the way that house measured you. And I have watched you do the hardest thing of all, which is to keep giving out of a jar you were sure was empty. You poured patience into your children on the days you had none left for yourself. You carried someone else's worry when your own was already more than you could hold. You showed up again. For people who never once asked how full your vessel was, you thought you were running on nothing. You were not. You were pouring from the treasure, calling it your last reserves. And the fact that it never ran out was not you stretching thin. It was me, keeping the vessel full faster than you could empty it. So do this with me now, if you are somewhere you can. Let both hands come to rest open in your lap, palms turned up toward the ceiling, the way you would hold something you are waiting to receive, rather than something you are straining to keep from losing. Notice how unfamiliar open hands feel after all this gripping. That upturned shape is the shape of a vessel, not a fist that clenches around crumbs. A bowl that can hold what is poured. The emptiness does not visit at random. It has its favorite hours. And I am with you in each one. Late, when the house has gone quiet. Nothing is left to occupy your hands. The sense of how little seems to hold you up. It comes rising like water against a wall, or early. In the seconds before you step in front of the people who count on you to be the one with plenty to give, you straighten yourself. You fix your expression into something that reads as abundance. You let them see a vessel that brims, because the ones who draw from you only ever look at the top of the jar. The top must never show how far down it has gone. I feel the whole cost of that act. Every bit of effort it takes to seem overflowing while you feel wrung dry. I have counted. And in this quiet, you can set the act down. Here the jar may look as empty as it truly feels. Consider how differently two people carry the same jar. One is certain the fullness has to arrive from outside. So every lean day frightens them. Every silence feels like a door being shut. And they spend their strength listening for a delivery, rationing their hope, bracing for the disappointment. The other knows the treasure is already sealed in. So the same lean day becomes survivable. The same silence becomes bearable, because the fullness was never riding on what the day happened to bring. Nothing about their circumstances is different. The bills are the same. The waiting is the same. What changes is whether they believe there is anything in the vessel. When the surface goes quiet, and that one belief changes how every empty-seeming hour lands on them. And here is the strange thing about your emptiness. It has never once been a verdict on you. You have read it as proof. Proof that you were passed over. That the blessing went to other addresses and skipped yours. That you are simply one of those whose jar never seems to fill. But the emptiness you keep measuring is only the space where you have been looking for the wrong kind of fullness. You kept waiting for something to arrive from the outside and clatter into the jar. Meanwhile, the real treasure had already been set inside. So quietly, so far down, it made no sound when you shook it. Hear this, because it changes how you see all that waiting. The hunger in you to be filled. It was never a flaw. You were made to hold something. You were made to be a vessel. And a vessel that longs to be full is only doing what it was shaped to do. That reaching was never wrong. You reached for fullness because you were built to carry it. The only thing that went wrong is that you were told the fullness would come rattling in from outside, on a truck, on a deadline. All along, it had been poured in at the bottom. It was only waiting for you to stop shaking the jar, long enough to feel its weight. The picture of me you have been holding all these years was painted by people who taught you that provision is a wage. That if you wait long enough, believe hard enough, and prove yourself faithful enough, then one day the shipment finally arrives. The jar is filled from the outside as your reward. You learn to read me as a God who keeps the good thing back in a storeroom somewhere. He hands it over, only when you have earned the release. So you have